Okay, guys, class today is going to be on the Old Testament characters and New Testament, actually, of David, Joseph, and Jesus. You want to know what these three guys have in common?
Yes.
What do they have in common?
They have the same color hair.
Oh, maybe. Maybe they have the same color hair. But what we're actually going to be talking about is how they all had courage in the Bible. So, you guys all know the story of David, right? It's David and Goliath, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to know how old David was? David was 16 years old. He's a little bit older than Xavier here, or a little bit younger. David was a kid. I mean, he was a teenager, and yet he was willing to fight a guy that made grown men shake in their boots. I mean, Goliath is 9 feet tall, super huge dude. I mean, he carries a spear itself that is the weight of David. But David didn't fear him at all. You want to know what David said when he saw Goliath for the first time?
Hi.
No, he did not say hi. You want to know what he said? He said, "My God will protect me and I will defeat you." David was not afraid like all the other guys in the army. They were terrified of Goliath. But David still stood his ground, didn't let Goliath badmouth God, and he defeated Goliath, right?
Yeah.
And so the next guy, his name's Joseph. So Joseph had courage because imagine you're just randomly taken and you're being taken somewhere where you don't know. Well, that's kind of what happened to Joseph. Joseph's brothers threw him in a pit and sold him into slavery. Could you imagine how scary that would be? Joseph just was randomly, just one day, thrown into a pit by his own brothers. Like his own family threw him into the pit because they didn't like him, because he was the favorite, right? And so Joseph ends up going to Egypt, right? And in Egypt, he's a slave for like 20 years, right? I mean, the guy essentially is like the lowest servant slave that there can be. He goes and, he actually is doing pretty well. He works in this guy named Potiphar's house. And Potiphar was like a really big official in the Egyptian times. He pretty much cleaned his house, take care of his money, and he did all that for Potiphar. So God kind of blessed Joseph while he was in Egypt, right? So Joseph was just a slave one day, and then the next day he was the chief servant, which kind of means like he was the highest a servant could be. He was trusted by his master. His master let him do whatever he wanted. And then Potiphar's wife tries to sleep with him, right? I mean, he's like, no, don't do that, And so Potiphar's wife ends up lying to him, to his master, Potiphar, and gets Joseph thrown into jail again. And now Joseph's down there for quite a bit of time. But then he helps the Pharaoh with his dreams, remember? 7 plagues and stuff. And then the last guy who had courage in the Bible, most importantly who had courage, was Jesus. So Jesus is actually God's son, right? I mean, that's pretty basic knowledge. Jesus came down to earth in the form of a baby. I mean, he is essentially God. Jesus and God are pretty much the same person. So Jesus came from being a God to being a man. He lived his whole life suffering pain and tiredness, something that he had never experienced before. And then he makes a group of 12 friends, right? The 12 disciples. And he's going around the world and preaching with them. And they're doing all sorts of crazy miracles, turning water into wine, healing people that are sick, raising people from the dead. Jesus was doing amazing miracles. But then some of the government, the Jewish government, the synagogue, and the Pharisees, those guys, they got really jealous of Jesus. They felt, why is Jesus getting all of this popularity? You see, they wanted to be the popular ones. They didn't want anybody else to be the popular ones. So Jesus knew what was going to happen. He knew from the very start what was going to happen. Jesus knew he was going to be crucified, right? He knew he was going to go up on the cross. Now, could you imagine the pain of being crucified? Getting nails driven through your hands? Jesus could have easily left that situation. He could have just said, hey, I'm done. Told God to bring down the angels. Jesus would have been saved. But Jesus had the courage to complete the work that God had planned for him. And he died on the cross for our sins. So these three guys from the Old Testament and New Testament alike, David, Joseph, and Jesus, all had courage even when things got rough.